By now, we've probably all seen these pictures, right? So if you haven't seen these, this is the supposed new piece of tech being put into Final Fantasy XIV to eventually make it so that you don't have to go outside of the game to use strat guides like Raid Plan, for example. If you're not familiar with the pickup group scene at endgame raiding, it usually boils down past the first week of content release that people either go with a YouTuber's guide for a fight or they go with a community-made raid plan on the Raid Plan website. This is then what you usually find pasted into Party Finder, and then if you follow that link, you get a raid plan with slides basically showing you how to do the fight, or at least how that has been performed by other groups. And basically the pug scene usually agrees with one or another version of this, be that, like I say, a YouTuber or the actual raid plan, and that's expected of you to learn, right? You're expected to see that listing in the Party Finder, click the link, and then open a browser and follow that outside of the game to actually look at things like that, which is absolutely fine. But in this sort of day and age, clicking on links is a little bit sus, isn't it? Creative Unit 3 then wants you to basically have an in-game version of that players can make strats for every phase of a fight. Save these much like you currently can with the raid marker system they incorporated, and then share these in-game with other players so that they can add them to their save list of strategies. This feature was first shown very early into Dawntrail's existence, and beyond this being promised to be somewhere within Dawntrail, we still don't really have a confirmed release date, aside from it likely being ready for 7.4 patch. During the 10th anniversary celebration livestream for the Korean version of Final Fantasy XIV that happened a couple of days ago, the Korean staff celebrating the release of the game talked about how soon the Korean version will be brought into the same release window as the global version of a game that you and I play. That means that with 7.4, supposedly, all versions of the game will be working towards the world first race, and content will be releasing simultaneously for patches moving forward from patch 7.4. The original estimate for the Raid Planner feature in-game was to be estimated for 7.4, and during the 87th letter from a producer live, producer and director Naoki Yoshida said this: "We want to make these features more solid, so I am sorry this won't be in 7.3, but we're doing our best for 7.4, end quote. So it seems pretty likely they'll push it for that, hopefully. And just quickly back to the Korean celebrations, the appearance of Kei Odagiri, the lead game UI designer for Final Fantasy XIV on stage, saw the repeat of the previous dev panel we saw during the 2024 PAX West panel, but with the notable appearance of more screens of that raid planner. And it seems to be way more fleshed out than it was before, and could be close to its final version, fit for release into the game, fingers crossed. If we take a quick time to Google Lens translate some of this, you'll see that on the left side you have a list of object layers, which means you can alter the overlap of objects placed on the board, so markers for boss targets, things like that, stack markers, etc. As you can see, the DPS symbol are above the small monster positions, so presumably you can toggle this around and move the layers around for each slide. So what you're seeing here is the creation of one slide, and then presumably you can put multiple slides together like you can outside the game using something like Raid Plan. In this new slide then, you can also see that the depth of this tool is expanding to feature familiar markers that we hadn't seen before, such as stack markers that are obviously placeable to show where light parties, for example, would stack on this picture during a fight. There's also arrows that have been added, so you can attach these with red lines by the looks of things to rolls, showing the direction a tether could be used, or to show general movement based on your assigned role. In the 87th letter from a producer live, we also got a slide mentioning their possible plans for this feature going forward. These include the functionality to display the board where desired. This also includes during battle, which would be pretty amazing for players with only one screen, for example, on a PC, who might want to have the plan up to refer to as they do a fight, or at the very least pop this up at the press of a button during a phase they're still practicing. That could be really cool for actually learning fights with people who ordinarily would have to, you know, wipe and then externally look at a website to then come back, you know, that kind of thing. The more you put things in front of players in the game, the less problematic the pug scene will be, the more that people can learn what you're doing and adapt to that, so to speak. There's also supposedly the option to highlight specified jobs. Presumably this is so that you can emphasize changes for certain mechanics on one character, or I guess highlight your own role and your own position so you can easily glance at where you are or what you were doing during that particular phase, which could be quite useful. And they also mentioned the possibility of the ability to set up multiple schemes for a single duty, which as time progresses and the community comes up with strats that evolve since the release of content, sometimes it will be important to have a working strat and then also save a second higher optimization strat for melee, for example, or even a YouTuber strat that they could import into the game, or a raid plan strat into the game, so that more people have access to this that don't want to go outside of the game to play their endgame raiding. In a time when you can't really trust links, as we say, posted into a game that take you somewhere else on the internet, I mean, there's all sorts of controversy recently with stuff like that. This entire thing is going to be a much better way to distribute strats with your friends and people around the entire globe, right? But that is only, of course, if its features match things outside of the game, right? If it's well designed. One thing I would like to see, especially from these screenshots, is the ability to write annotations on the screen, or maybe in an accompanying text box that you can click on with these images. Showing a strat is absolutely fine, but without some context and text to actually explain what any of this means, it's going to be extra work and probably will end up tabbing out to a YouTube video anyway, right? Obviously, these restrictions are in my mind, and potentially many areas are there to be improved on with this feature. I do think, though, that if this does actually come out within the 7.4 window, which I really hope it does, then it could revolutionize the way people learn fights and share strategies in the game going forward, especially into 8.0. Not to mention meaning those on a console wouldn't have to have their phone next to them permanently to learn strats as well, right? Or tabbing to a raid plan, or dealing with Discord links. What do you think, though? And I suppose, what would you add? That's kind of like the better question here. It's difficult really for me to judge without seeing this in motion, but I really hope that you can easily toggle between slides, maybe have a timer on these things that you can just, you know, click it once. The last thing you want to do is text and drive, so to speak, right? During a fight, if you can have these things up, it's going to be like pausing the music so that you can turn the page for the next part of the notation. I don't know how this is going to work, so I need to see it in motion, and I think a lot of people are going to reserve their judgment for that. Also, another thing I thought about is if there's only a few slots, like a hand-picked like 5 or so slots at launch to save strats, it's going to make it really difficult to choose what to save and probably push people outside of the game again, especially since we're going to have what, Criterion 40 offering Deep Dungeon, which is supposedly ultimate difficulty for 4 players. We've got actual ultimate raids, we've got savage tiers, we've got extreme trials, potentially more chaotic fights in the future, and with the new mantra of making things more accessible to more players and having harder options and easier options for nearly all pieces of content outside of ultimate, that means that more people presumably will be doing more stuff at endgame because it will flex to that, be that variant mode taking over from Criterion or whatever their plan is for that scaling content. There needs to be enough slots to actually save strats, because people will want to use strats for this. There will be community favorite things, and it's a little bit different than sharing markers, because if you have not got a certain set of strats, like a certain set of markers, someone else likely has them saved, so that you can rely on someone else to bring those to the actual party. Whereas with this, one person hasn't got it saved, they're gonna need to save it, right? They can't just, one person can't click a button and then show this on screen for other people, which I think is something they should consider, because that would be better than having something that you'd actively have to copy and paste, or, you know, press a button to share and then the other person to accept that. I think it would be cool to show something to someone. So I think there needs to be at least 30. I think there's 30 in total of waymarks that you can save in the game, so there needs to be at least that. in my opinion. I don't know if there's going to be that many at launch, but I think anything less than that might be a little bit irritating to juggle, especially with the amount of content that you might be doing going forward, right? Presumably with this new scaling system. Personally, I am pretty optimistic for the way things are going in the game, and features like this could become second nature, as we've seen with many other third-party stuff get eventually added to the game. But yeah, let me know what you think about this. I thought I'd share this because it's obviously something I'm interested in, and I think a lot of other people probably didn't watch the 10th anniversary Korean live stream, so we actually got a couple of extra slides, and it's an interesting topic. Let me know. More videos on the way, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.